Okay, let's picture this. It's March 1911, New York City. You've got this factory floor packed, just buzzing with sewing machines.
Yeah, hundreds of workers, mostly young women, immigrants, working really long hours.
6 days a week, right, and barely making enough money to live on, stitching blouses. But here's the kicker.
The doors.
Exactly. The factory owners, they locked the doors from the outside during work hours. Claimed it was to stop theft, keep people working.
And then disaster. A fire starts.
And it spreads incredibly fast. All those fabric scraps everywhere, it just went up.
And those locked doors, people were trapped. No real fire exits. The stairwells were just choked with smoke and flames.
There was one fire escape, but it was flimsy, right? It actually collapsed under the weight.
It did. It was horrifying. So many people, desperate, jumped from the 9th, 10th floors. They saw it as the only way out.
146 people died, mostly young women, teenagers even. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire?
It was just this symbol, a really brutal symbol of what was wrong. And it absolutely seared itself into the public's mind. A demand for change was inevitable.
And that fire, as horrific as it was, wasn't some freak accident, was it? It really pointed to much bigger systemic problems across the board.
Absolutely. It shone a spotlight on just how bad things had become in industry, in daily life.
So that's what we're diving into today. This period, roughly 1900 to 1917, called the Progressive Era.
Right. It was a time when people started saying, enough is enough.
Our mission here is to unpack the problems that were just rampant back then, talk about the people who fought tooth and nail for change, and show how their work, their fight, actually created protections that you still rely on today, often without even thinking about it.
It's amazing how much we take for granted now.
It really is. So to get why the Progressive Era even happened, we need to paint a picture of what America was like before these reforms.
Yeah, you have to understand the baseline. Think about it. Almost none of the safety nets or consumer protections we know today existed then.
So workplaces, like the Triangle Factory, but maybe even worse in some way.
Oh, definitely. Workplaces were often just incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Dark, poor ventilation, machines with no guards on them at all, noxious fumes sometimes.
So getting seriously injured or even killed was just part of the risk.
Pretty much, yeah. It was baked into the job for many industries, and the hours were brutal.
10, 12 hours a day?
Easily, 6 days a week, and for really low pay. Plus, if you got hurt, tough luck.
No workers' comp or anything like that?
Nope, no safety net. Get injured, you're out of a job, maybe permanently disabled with no support. It could ruin a whole family.
And then there was child labor, which is just heartbreaking to think about.
It really is. You had kids sometimes as young as 5 or 6.
5 or 6? Wow.
Yeah, working in factories, down in coal mines, out in fields. Same dangerous conditions as adults, even less pay, and absolutely no chance for school.
And trying to change that, getting child labor reforms passed, that must have been a huge fight.
A massive uphill battle. Industries relied on that cheap labor. They didn't want to give it up.
Okay, so work is dangerous, kids are working. What about just basic stuff like food? Was that safe?
Safe? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
There was practically zero government oversight for food production back then.
Meaning
You could have contaminated meat being sold, milk might have chemicals added to it to cover up spoilage, medicines making wild claims.
like miracle cures.
Exactly. Miracle cures that were useless, or worse, actually harmful, filled with alcohol or even narcotics sometimes. There was no Pure Food and Drug Act yet, no FDA.
So you just hoped for the best when you bought something.
You basically did. You were completely reliant on the seller, maybe being honest, which often they weren't. Consumer protection was not really a concept.
And why were all these problems, unsafe work, bad food, child labor, why were they so hard to fix?
Well, a big part of it was political corruption. You had these powerful industries, the trusts, the big corporations.
Right.
They had immense influence over politicians. They could lobby, bribe, whatever it took to make sure regulations didn't happen. Keeping oversight weak meant profits stayed high.
They created this wall almost, making it super hard for ordinary people to get any real change.
Exactly. You needed something or someone to break through that wall.
And that's where the muckrakers come in, which is a great name, by the way.
It is, isn't it? Theodore Roosevelt actually coined it, maybe a bit dismissively at first, but it stuck.
So who were they? These muckrakers?
They were essentially investigative journalists, writers, activists. And they were fearless. They decided they were going to expose all the ugliness hiding beneath the surface of American society.
The corruption, the dangerous factories, the child labor stuff.
All of it. But they didn't just list facts. They told stories. powerful, compelling stories that grabbed people, made them angry, made them demand action.
Okay, so probably the most famous one is Upton Sinclair, right? With The Jungle.
Absolutely. Sinclair's may be the prime example. He wanted to expose the horrible conditions for workers in the Chicago meatpacking industry, so he went undercover.
Undercover, like he got a job there.
Yeah, for several weeks, lived among the workers, saw it all firsthand. And what he saw, and then wrote about in The Jungle in 1906, it was stomach-churning.
Give us a sense. What kind of stuff did he describe?
Oh, just filth unimaginable today. Workers handling meat with infections, rats running over meat piles, tuberculosis-infected animals being processed alongside healthy ones.
Mm.
He even wrote about workers falling into these giant rendering vats and, well, becoming part of the lard product.
Oh my God, seriously?
That's what he described. Whether every single detail was literally true or slightly exaggerated for effect is debated, but the overall picture of filth and danger was absolutely real.
And the reaction?
It was explosive.
But maybe not quite in the way Sinclair intended.
Yeah.
He famously said, "I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident, I hit it in the stomach."
Meaning people were more grossed out by the food than upset about the workers. Exactly. His goal was to highlight the exploitation of labor, to push for socialism, really. But the public outcry was overwhelmingly about what is in the food we are eating.
Which I guess makes sense from a self-preservation standpoint.
It does, and this shows the power of the muckrakers. They tapped into something visceral. They used narrative, that storytelling power, to create this shared sense of outrage. That outrage was the fuel needed to start pushing back against this system.
And push back they did. So The Jungle comes out, people are disgusted, horrified. What happens next? Does the government actually step in?
It does, and remarkably quickly. President Theodore Roosevelt read The Jungle. He was apparently quite skeptical at first, but also disturbed.
So he didn't just dismiss it.
No. He actually sent his own investigators to Chicago quietly to check out Sinclair's claims.
Did they back Sinclair up?
They more than backed him up. Their
Oh.
official report was, in some ways, even more graphic and damning than the book. They confirmed the unsanitary conditions, the diseased meat, everything.
Wow, so Roosevelt had proof.
He had proof, and he had massive public pressure letters, protests. It gave him the political leverage he needed. Even powerful industries couldn't easily fight back against that combination.
Okay, so this outrage turns into actual laws.
Yes. This is where you see real government action spurred by the public. Within months of The Jungle and the investigators' report, Congress passed two landmark laws in 1906,
Which were?
the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. Huge.
Let's break those down. Pure Food and Drug Act, what did that do?
Fundamentally, it banned mislabeled or adulterated food and drugs.
Yeah.
For the first time, manufacturers couldn't just lie about what was in their products or sell dangerous stuff without consequence.
So no more secret cocaine in kids' medicine.
Well, it aimed to stop that kind of thing, yes. It required accurate labeling. And crucially, it led directly to the creation of the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA.
The FDA we know today, it started back then.
That's its origin, yep. The agency responsible for ensuring the safety of your food and medicine. It's a direct legacy.
And the Meat Inspection Act. Pretty self-explanatory.
Right. Given the horrors Sinclair described, this act mandated federal inspection of meatpacking plants to ensure basic sanitation standards. The Department of Agriculture, the USDA, got the power to enforce this.
So that book, The Jungle, had an incredible direct impact on protecting consumers.
Absolutely massive. A single book sparked major federal legislation and created agencies that still protect us. It's a prime example of muckraking leading to reform.
Okay, so food and drugs start getting safer. What about the workers? We started with the Triangle Fire. Did that tragedy lead to changes too?
Oh, definitely. Just like The Jungle shocked people about food, the Triangle Fire horrified them about workplace safety. Seeing those young women leap to their deaths, it was a wake-up call.
How did things change after that?
State governments, especially New York first, but then others followed, started passing real workplace safety laws, things we consider basic now.
Like what?
Requirements for fire escapes, sprinkler systems, making sure doors weren't locked during work hours, better ventilation, machine guards. States also started setting up factory inspection commissions and departments of labor to actually enforce these new rules.
So the government started taking responsibility for worker safety in a way it hadn't before.
Exactly. The perception began to shift. It wasn't just seen as the worker's own risk anymore. There was a growing sense that employers and the government had a duty to provide reasonably safe conditions.
Was there anyone particularly leading the charge for workers' rights, and especially for kids?
Yes, definitely. A key figure here was Florence Kelley. She was an absolutely tireless advocate.
Florence Kelly, what was her focus?
She fought relentlessly for better conditions for working women and children. She pushed for minimum wage laws, limits on working hours, trying to get that 10 or 12-hour day reduced, and she was a fierce opponent of child labor.
So she was tackling those core issues we talked about earlier. How did she manage to get things done against all that industry opposition?
She was incredibly smart and strategic. She wasn't just making speeches. She knew how to work the system. She gathered data, meticulously documented the abuses, especially of child labor. She helped organize consumer boycotts, urging people not to buy goods made in sweatshops.
Using consumer power.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And she was instrumental in lobbying for legislation, helping to draft laws and pushing them through state legislatures and eventually at the federal level.
Yeah.
She understood you needed laws with teeth, real enforcement.
So it was people like her, combined with the public outrage from events like the Triangle Fire, that started to turn the tide.
Absolutely. It was that combination.
Yeah.
The exposure for muckrakers, the shock of tragedies, and the persistent strategic advocacy of reformers like Florence Kelly that really built the foundation for modern labor laws. Putting kids in schools instead of factories, that was a huge part of her fight.
It's just amazing to think about that shift from a time where these problems were just accepted almost to a time where society started saying, no, this isn't right. We need to protect people.
It was a profound change in thinking. And it wasn't just about safety or food. This era also saw big pushes to make democracy itself work better for ordinary people, fighting political machines, expanding voting rights. It was all part of this broader wave of reform.
It really does show that change is possible, even against powerful interests, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shows that focused criticism, persistent advocacy, and public demand can reshape society. And importantly, the structure they put in place back then, they weren't perfect, they continued to evolve, but they laid the groundwork. Progress isn't usually one giant leap. It's often built piece by piece.
Right. And that brings us to the legacy, because this isn't just history, is it? The impact of the progressive era is still right here with us.
Completely. Think about it. Every time you look at a food label, check the ingredients, trust that the medicine you're taking is safe,
Yeah.
and actually contains what it says it does.
That's the Pure Food and Drug Act, the FDA. That's from this era.
Exactly. That assurance comes directly from the battles fought over a century ago, sparked by things like the jungle.
And workplace safety. The idea that your employer has some responsibility to make sure you don't get killed or maimed on the job.
That comes from this time, too. Minimum wage laws, limits on working hours, regulations about fire exits and machine guards all have their roots in the reforms pushed by people like Florence Kelly, spurred by tragedies like Triangle.
And kids being in school instead of factories.
A direct result of the long fight against child labor, a cornerstone of the progressive movement. Even ongoing debates about voting rights and access to democracy often echo the discussions and reforms that started back then.
It's really woven into the fabric of our daily lives.
It truly is. These protections are so fundamental now, it's easy to forget they had to be fought for, fiercely.
So maybe the next time you glance at that food label or just walk into your workplace knowing there are safety rules, take a second. Think about those battles from the progressive era that made it possible.
It does make you think, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it really raises a question for today. What are the major problems, the sort of hidden injustices or dangers we face now that might need a new generation of muckrakers, a new wave of reformers to bring them into the light? And, what part could any of us play in that?